Okay, let me bring you back. So variables that you could look at to answer the question. You guys want to shout out some good ones? You all had good ones, by the way.
Wait, which question?
Some variables. A, sorry. Tell me some variables, Jake.
The grip.
The grip, okay, is a variable.
The consistency.
The feel. The consistency.
New material, I said, like the material of the ball.
Material, okay.
That's about it.
Anybody got more to add?
The number of points scored.
Number of points scored.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Yeah. Ariel?
How many timeouts they needed to call?
Oh, the number of timeouts. Interesting, interesting. All very good. Shall we pick one to continue with? I think I spoke to each of your groups about quantitative versus categorical. I think one of the interesting things that we found in this group over here was the same thing can be thought of both as quantitative and categorical. For example, at 7-Eleven, you have Slurpees. They're usually, the size of the cup is categorized how? By?
Small, medium, large.
Ounces.
Oh, yeah.
You haven't been to 7-Eleven lately, Karina. That's what's going on. 16, 24, 32 ounces. Is that quantitative or categorical? Quantitative. But if you go to Starbucks, do you go to Starbucks, Karina? Do you go to Starbucks?
I don't do Starbucks.
Okay, all right. Well, that's where you're going to get into what we would think as small, medium, large. What does Starbucks say? Tall, grande, venti. I can't believe you guys all know that. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, so let's say we take points scored. I'm going to tell you that that's quantitative. How are you going to collect the data? Usually, game points scored is sort of public data, right? So you could watch the game, or you could go back in the records.
So if we were to use the consistency and feel for B, it would be categorical, correct?
Carla, say that one more time.
If we were to use feel and consistency for B, it would be categorical?
Yes, feel and consistency. Probably when people are describing those things, they're not describing them as numbers. They're describing it's a good feel, it's a bad feel, it seems to be consistent when I bounce it, or it's not consistent when I bounce it, or pass it, or whatever.
So we were talking about using the categorical method, and so what we came up with collecting the data would be a double blind of both the coaches and the players.
Oh, so they don't know?
And then randomly select them and give them the old ball and the new ball? Is that?
That's interesting. So double blinding, because we talked a lot about blinding in Module 1. And there's some things you just can't blind. Now, I know shoes really well. If you give me a synthetic pair of leather boots, I'm going to know. I'm going to know the difference because I already know the difference between synthetic feel and a leather feel. So you probably couldn't blind the type of ball that they're using. And you probably wouldn't be able to blind it from the coach either. Now, if you could make them look and feel exactly the same and nobody would be able to tell, then that would be blinding.
I think that's what we were thinking is that sometimes people automatically, if they know something's new, then they already have a preconception. They're used to the old thing.
I absolutely agree with you that how the players are feeling depending on which ball they have is affecting things.
Right, that's what we
That's a
thought
bias
maybe
in their
work.
study, and I totally agree with you. Daisy and then Ariel.
Similar to the study, they did the study on like if people could actually tell the difference between Coca-Cola and Pepsi.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people who were drinking like the Pepsi, they were thinking it was Coca-Cola when literally it was Pepsi.
Yep. Sometimes that actually I had a person do that experiment and people couldn't tell, but claim they can. Or the difference between vanilla versus French vanilla versus vanilla bean. I can tell the difference. Ariel.
Well, you know, in basketball, if you did the individual players' points, and they might be mad because their performance was off at that game, it's really not the ball. So if you took the data of what their average points that they ranged in a game, because that's if you know basketball players, then you would know, you know what I mean? And then you could do a
Yeah.
proportional.
So that's really interesting. She's talking about taking a actual player and following the player through the games and looking at what kind of points they scored. And really what Ariel's group is doing is controlling for the fact that different players behave differently. Super interesting. Susanna, maybe you want to tell us what your group was thinking about?
So it might be a good idea to look back at various seasons because obviously each season is different. There's all these confounding variables that can affect every season. So it's probably a good idea to just
Go back through the
through
seasons.
seasons to just
Because we have lots of seasons of the leather ball. Then they switched to the synthetic ball, so we only have one season of that. Then they went back to the leather ball again. This group came up with an idea that I thought was good. Elizabeth, you want to describe it?
So we use the example of like the LA Lakers and the Dallas Mavs of getting how they played in 07 versus how they played in prior seasons and kind of doing a comparative between those seasons to see if they did worse or if they did better because of the ball.
And so they paired two teams together and followed that pairing. That's controlling for the other teams that they could be playing against. Very interesting ideas. I can tell you that the study we did, not as complicated as what you guys came up with. That's great, but I loved all your ideas. We kept it a little more simple. That's all right. Okay, so I'm going to show you the real data for the points scored, but I'm not going to show you until the end of class. So you're going to deal with 3 scenarios right now of fake data.